as you look across the country, you know it better than anybody else that leadership has consequences.
Yep.
And that you're dealing with those consequences in everyday life, with your families, paying your bills, just how much more difficult that your life has been just because of the decisions that she's made and how they dramatically impacted you. So this will be a little bit of a different kind of a speech, but I hope it's something that you can take from here and really use to go into the next election cycle, recognizing that who we vote for and who we put in positions of power matters. It matters more than we ever noticed or cared about or realized before. It became very real these last couple of years, didn't it? For me, I think I will explain to you how I made some of the decisions that I made this last 18 months or so, but I think in order for you to understand the decisions I made, you have to know a little bit about me. So is it okay if I tell you a little bit of my story?
Sure.
My background is that I grew up on a farm and a ranch with a dad who was a cowboy, and he was super tough. I don't know if any of you had tough parents, but my parents, probably the best gift they gave to us as kids was that they gave us impossible things to do. My dad was like John Wayne, and so he woke us up every morning by yelling up the stairs, "Get up! More people die in bed than anywhere else." And I don't even know if that's true. I remember being a little girl laying in bed going, really? And then we went outside and we just worked all the time. Mom was shoving food in our pockets as we went out the door, hoping you could make it through the day. But he was a guy who gave us the most impossible things to do. For example, he never taught me how to drive a semi. When I was 12 years old, he got it going down the road. We were taking a loaded semi full of corn home from the field, and he just said, "Oh, you know what? You take this home. I gotta take another truck," and jumped out the door. He said, "Make your corners wide." I remember I dove across the cabin, grabbed the wheel, and I drove all the way home 7 miles in third gear, made very, very wide corners, and when I got into the yard, and I cried most of the way home. When I got into the yard, I didn't even know how to stop it. I just turned it off. And drifted to a stop, and I remember when I shut it off and I stopped and I thought, after I thought I lived, I thought, I can probably drive anything. And I realized over the years as he did this to us, that he was teaching us to be problem solvers and to figure things out and to give us confidence. And I think that's the biggest disservice we're doing for our kids today in this country, is that we are trying to do everything for them.
Amen.
And that's not our job as parents and grandparents. I'm a new grandma. I've got a little baby girl, Miss Addie, that is 3 months old, that is my new granddaughter. And the biggest gift that I can give to her is to give her impossible things to do. Amen. To raise her to be a problem solver, and to raise her to be somebody that has confidence to know she can tackle big things. One day I was fixing fence with my dad when I was 10 years old, and he was going to pound a post in. Does anybody know what a post mall is?
Oh, yeah. They're so fun.
But a post mall is a thing that when you put up any campaign signs, you pound it in the post, right? Really, who knew what I was getting trained for? But he was mad that he had to wait for it. He was going to pound this post in, turned around to me, and I was supposed to hand it to him, and it was still in the truck. And he said, "Get to the truck and get it." So I ran to the truck and ran back, which you never walk anywhere, and got back to him, and I handed it to him. And I remember he said to me, "You should know what I need before I know what I need." And I remember just being so confused by that. And it was years later that I started to think what he was teaching us to do was to be strategic, to think 3 or 4 steps ahead of where we were today, and to make sure that I had all the tools laid out before he even knew that he needed it, and to do that. And people always today ask why I'm talking about what's going to happen from a decision that I make 10 years from now. Well, what will happen 15 years from now? What's the precedent that this sets up? What breaks today because I made this decision that has long-term consequences? We need leaders like that. We don't have very many leaders like that. We live in this instant gratification society that wants a quick headline, a 30-second clip on Fox News that makes them famous, and they don't even realize what the long-term consequences and damages that are happening from them doing that, saying that, making that decision, and what happens to day-to-day life. So anyways, that's how I grew up. When I was in college, my dad was killed in an accident on our farm, and it devastated us. My sister was in Georgia, my older brother was in Alcona, my younger brother was still in high school. So I ended up quitting college, coming home, and becoming the general manager of our operation. And it was devastating for our family. We had one of the larger operations in the state of South Dakota. A lot of land, cattle, machinery, but we didn't have any money in the bank. And I got hit with death taxes. At the time, these estate taxes, which Joe Biden is talking about,
Bringing back.
doing grave damage to us by increasing those taxes
Yep.
again. At that time, it was 55%.
Oh my God.
So if you can imagine the hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars that we suddenly owed, and I didn't have any money. So I ended up taking out a loan, and it took me 10 years to pay off those taxes, and it made me mad. So people ask me all the time, how did you get involved in government and politics? It was from that experience. We had nobody in our family that was involved in politics before this. I just started to show up at meetings. I wanted to get passionate about tax reform and talk about the damage it was doing to family businesses. And then ended up running for office when people kept asking me to do it. In our family, we were taught, you don't complain about things, you fix them. And we need some fixers.
Thank you.
I ended up running for the legislature in South Dakota, got there about a week and realized that the leadership controlled everything. So then I ran for leadership, was the assistant leader in the House, and then ran for Congress in 2010. Served for 4 terms in Congress. But listen, serving in Congress, I had the chance to work with President Trump, did amazing things that I had wanted to do. I had the chance to serve on the Ways and Means Committee and do tax reform with President Trump. Everything that I talked about for the last many years. But what's interesting about the Ways and Means Committee and doing fundamental policy like that, somebody described that committee to me one time as the committee that has the most ways it could be mean. Because they have jurisdiction over health care, over tax policy, all of those things that are just, have a lot of impact on your life. But what was interesting while I was there working on National Defense Authorization Acts, working on farm bills, is that I could do policy and I could shape policy, but governors, they set agendas. They make decisions every day that impact people's lives. Governors are CEOs. They get the chance to do that. And I decided to run for governor in 2018. When I was running for governor, I talked about the fact that I believed South Dakota could be an example to the nation. I had no idea that our opportunity to be an example to the nation would happen through a pandemic. I believed that because we were small, because we didn't have that many people in our state, that we could do things that other states couldn't do. We could put in place conservative reforms and be like a pilot project and really prove that they delivered better consequences, better outcomes for families, for businesses. And that is what I talked about while I was running for governor. For over a year, we could be an example to a nation that I wanted to build stronger families. When I got into the governor's office, just a couple of months later, we got hit with a bomb cyclone. I had never heard of what a bomb cyclone was before, but it was 6 feet of snow and 6 inches of rain on frozen ground, and my entire state flooded. In fact, 63 of our 66 counties were declared federal disaster areas. Some of them 5 times over in just 2019 in 1 year. So all of 2019, I dealt with flooding and communities that were wiped out with that and tornadoes, and I thought for sure 2020 is going to be so much better. And then we ended up getting this virus. I think I did what every other governor in this country did in South Dakota. I studied the science, and I know every governor did that. They talked to their health officials, looked at how the virus was going to hit other countries, and as it came into the United States, what it was doing in other states. I just think that I took it a step further. That I talked a lot to my general counsel. I talked and visited and studied a lot with constitutional attorneys. I really wanted to understand what authority I had as a governor and what authority I didn't have as a governor. Because I believe that when That's when we break this country. And I didn't want to be the governor that did that. So as I was on the phone talking to all these governors for hundreds and hundreds of hours, I was on calls with your governor when she was making her decisions. Every governor in this country knew that they did not have the authority to make the decisions that they were making. But they did it anyways. And they did it anyways because they were scared. And this is the lesson from 2020 that we need to learn, is that the media and the liberals used fear to control people.
Yep.
And they used fear to push their agenda. And that's what they're still doing here today. And that's what's shocking to me. So in South Dakota, what I told my folks is, I'm going to trust you. I'm going to give you personal responsibility to make the best decisions for your families and the best decisions for your businesses, but I'm going to let you put food on the table, and we're going to get through this together. And overwhelmingly, the people in our state stepped up and did that. We never once closed a single business in the state of South Dakota. In fact, I didn't even define what an essential business was, because I don't believe governors have the authority to tell you that business is essential. We never issued a shelter in place, never mandated anything such as masks. We just said, I'm going to give you all the information that I have. I'm going to stand up and give you all the science and the data. I'm going to stand beside you, give you the PPE that you need. Whatever you need, we're going to do this, and we're going to do it together. Today in South Dakota, and of course we never had riots or violence. Nothing like that ever happened in South Dakota. It was amazing. In fact, when those riots and violence were happening in other parts of the country, it made me angry. And the disrespect to our law enforcement officers was devastating to me. So I decided to do a national campaign to our law enforcement officers saying, listen, if you want to come live somewhere where you're respected, where the communities will wrap their arms around your family and love you and support you, then come to South Dakota. We did that campaign for 1 week and had over 900 officers from 41 states raise their hands and say, I want to move to South Dakota.
Wow.
And we've almost tripled that number since then. So overwhelmingly, people are picking up their families and moving to states like South Dakota because they want a government that respects them. They want a government that recognizes that they have, under the Constitution, protections that allow their children to get educated, to keep their doors open on their businesses, and to protect their freedom to speak, their freedom to assemble, their freedom of religion. It's amazing what I watched people roll over and give up in some of these states this last year. Because the government told them they couldn't go to church, they just couldn't go to church.
Yeah.
Gave up their freedom of religion. Because the government said they couldn't assemble, they couldn't get together, they didn't. You can't say this, so they quit saying it. We gotta quit it. We gotta start standing up. Fighting back. Michigan today is ranked 38th out of the 50 states for downward trending and everything. Did you guys know that all of your statistics and data that you're going downward in quality of health care, your economy is failing, your education system is downtrending? I don't even know if your damn roads are better. Are they?
No. God.
Are they better?
No.
I wondered. I just remember her saying that all the time. Damn roads. Anyways, it's shocking to me to watch what her leadership has done to your state, and it grieves me because it doesn't have to be that way. In South Dakota today, we're a little state that nobody's really paying much attention to. But right now, we have one of the lowest unemployment rates in the country. In fact, I was the only governor that stood up and said, when President Trump offered the elevated unemployment benefits, I said, thank you, Mr. President, for that flexibility, but we don't need it. South Dakota wants to. Today in my state, I have less than 1,000 people in the entire state that's on unemployment.
Wow.
And I have 27,000 open jobs. And it's because hundreds of businesses are moving to our state. Thousands and thousands of people are moving to South Dakota. We have the fastest growing GDP rate in the country. Number 2 is Texas, which I love saying that. Texas, there's that 7.5%. South Dakota's GDP rate is 9.9%. And growing like crazy. If you want to build a house in South Dakota, you're going to have to wait 3 or 4 years right now for all the people that are moving in and want to be a part of our way of life. And listen, people don't move to South Dakota for our weather. They don't move to South Dakota for our beaches. They're moving to our state because they want to be like us. Because they want to live somewhere where they can have a quality of life. My tourism secretary was telling me the other day that for all of history, when people have Googled or searched on the internet for where they want to vacation, where they want to spend their time, it's always been beaches or tropical destinations. For the first time in history, that changed last year. Now it's rural America and small towns.
Wow. Yep.
So we have a unique opportunity to really talk about what conservative leadership does and the opportunities that it creates. We have the least amount of hours lost by any worker in the country, least amount of wages lost by any employee in the entire country, least amount of businesses that were closed throughout the pandemic in our state. And we are growing and have historic revenues coming into the state. And I want to remind you, we don't have an income tax in South Dakota. We don't have a corporate income tax, no personal property tax. The only thing that funds state government is a 4.5-cent sales tax. And we are bringing in hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars for people that are coming in and spending money and growing, and businesses are thriving just because of that low tax, low regulatory environment and a government that stays in its job and doesn't do more than what its job is. I think it was Teddy Roosevelt that said, knowing what's right doesn't mean anything unless you do what's right. And all these governors knew what's right, but they didn't follow through and they didn't do it because they were scared. And so we have a unique opportunity here to tell the story of what conservative leadership, what conservative values really does create in opportunities for families, for businesses, and how it really is the everything we've all embraced for years proves out to be true. When I talked about South Dakota being an example to the nation, we need to get very good at how we talk about the fact that these examples need to be talked about in real everyday lives to people that we haven't visited with for a long period of time. I was standing at an event, I think in Nashville the other day, and a man started to kind of get after me and he said, "You gotta fight harder, you gotta fight harder." And I turned around and I said, "You gotta fight harder. You gotta fight harder. I am out there gutting myself and my family is making incredible sacrifices and I will continue to do that because I'm all in. I'm all in on fighting for this country. It is not going to break my heart. But it made me think of the 3 things that I want to leave you guys with here today, okay? This is going to get a little challenging. It's a little different speech than you've heard before. But his saying that to me in our conversation back and forth, and it was interesting because it was a fundraiser for me, and I thought, boy, only I pick a fight at a fundraiser. My husband's like, really? But these 3 things are what we talked about that night, and I wanted to share them with you. When my first daughter was born, we had a baby shower that they held for me, and I remember my grandmother was there, and they went around the room and they asked everybody to give me advice as a new mother. And my grandmother was a tough German woman. She very rarely said anything other than what I should do better. But she said, "Kristi, I want you to say yes as often as you can, because so many times as a mom you have to say no. So say yes as often as you can." And it just struck me that I didn't want to be a mom who said no all the time. I wanted to be a mom who said yes. So when my kids were little, even today, if they say, "Let's go, I don't know, do something crazy," I'm like, "All right, If it's not gonna kill us, and if it's not bad, and not against the law, let's go do it. Even if they wanted to run down the driveway, when we were little kids, we do it. Jump in a mud puddle on Easter Sunday morning, we did it. I wanted to be a mom who said yes. But what was interesting was I applied that to my entire life. This world and people in your life will tell you that you need to say no to things. Yep. That you need to slow down, you're doing too much, spend more time reflecting on yourself and taking care of yourself. And yes, take care of yourself, but you need to start saying yes. Amen. People are going to ask you to do things that you need to say yes to. People are going to ask you to support a candidate, go knock on doors when you've never done it before, go hang some campaign signs, run for a school board. You need to do that. They are destroying our country with critical race theory. They are destroying this country with division and anger and hate and passion. We tell our kids education is everything and it's super important. It is important, but relationships will change your lives. Relationships will change your life. So when you say yes to something, you have no idea who you're going to meet at that meeting, at that conference, that will change your life forever. It could be your next business partner, your next mentor. It could be your next reference for some credible opportunity. Say yes, go, try it. You may find a gift and a talent that you didn't know that you had. I was going to be a rancher the rest of my life. Still love it. I just started going to meetings. I don't know why I'm the governor today, other than when people ask me to do something, I thought I can't complain about stuff, I gotta fix it. Why should I tell somebody else they should do it when I'm not willing to do it myself?
Amen.
So start saying yes. The second thing is this country is addicted to being offended.
Oh, yeah.
Right? We love to be offended by each other. Somebody says something and we're like, oh, I can't believe they said that. It's horrible and I'll never forgive them. You need to get over yourselves. Listen, we all have people in our lives that we quit talking to. That we figured they're so far gone, they're so liberal, I'm just not talking to them anymore, they've offended us. And we need to get over ourselves and start having those conversations again. Take the anger and the emotion out of the discussion and start visiting with them. When I married into the Noem family, my husband's family, they were almost all Democrats. Can you imagine what I did to them? I took their name, and then I ran for Congress as a Republican, and I mean, those poor people. And they still love me. And listen, most of them have re-registered now and are very conservative Republicans.
Good.
In fact, I tease my mother-in-law all the time now because I say, Sharon, you be careful. You sound like a Tea Party crazy Republican. Like, I know. But it didn't happen because I went to Thanksgiving dinner and blew them up over the dinner table. It happened because we had a relationship. And because I loved them. And I talked to them, and we started to have those conversations from that foundation. So go to people that you have written off and that you've quit talking to, and take the anger and the emotion out of it and listen to them. And then start having conversations. You look at what's happening in this country and on the news, the division and the hate has to stop. We fight hard, but then we also make sure we're speaking the truth. And that we're still remembering that those are people that we need to love. And that we need to consider, we have to win their hearts and minds as well. The last thing I'll leave you with, because I'm probably talking way too long, I don't know. I really went off the rails with you guys, so I hope that's okay. But the last one I will just say is that you need to be happy. We will draw people to us by our optimism. We are the only ones who have hope for this country right now. What we believe works. Our faith is important to us. We believe that God gave us our rights and that He is the one who's protecting this country. And we're standing for the truth of that. And we need to remember that when we get up in the morning, that we are more blessed than 99% of the people in this world just because we were born in the United States. When you wake up in the morning, remember that, be happy, be optimistic. People will want to be around you and be drawn to you because of that. There are so many people in this country that have picked a side. and they're all in for their side. There's a lot of people in the middle that are confused and scared, and they don't know what's truth anymore. We've never seen people lie more than we see today. What's coming out of the White House now is not the truth. When I was in Washington, D.C., and I was in Congress, I'd been there a year or two, and President Obama was our president. And it was time for the State of the Union address. And by that time, I learned that the State of the Union address is kind of just like a big show. Members of Congress go down to the floor. When their president says something, they stand up and clap, and the rest sit. And we got the speech ahead of time. Anyways, I didn't want to go. I really did not want to go. I wanted to sit in my office and watch it from there. And when my chief of staff and I were talking, and I said, I know I have to go, but it's just a long night. And anyways, when I went down to the House floor that night to watch President Obama give his speech, I stood at the back of the House floor and just kind of walked back and forth and was watching. And as he started to speak, I disagreed with a lot of what he was saying. In fact, some of what he was saying, I very much felt like was not even true. And felt like he was lying. I remember praying while I was walking back there saying, God, just confuse his speech. Help him to lose his nose. If he just disappear right now, that'd be fantastic. Or as he speaks, maybe his words could not make any sense when it goes out over the TV and people would be here, and it was everything. And then I realized I was quickly convicted. I felt it like it hit me like a ton of bricks, that I was being disobedient. I was doing the exact opposite of what God had called me to do. He called me to pray for our leaders, and instead I was praying against them. And this whole world can turn around in an instant by changing someone's heart and their mind. So I know that maybe we all have different perspectives and all have different life and backgrounds that we come from, but you win people by winning their hearts and their minds, both of them. You have the policy, you have all of that, the facts, the truth is on our side. Now we have to remember that the relationships, the heart is important too. And to continue to do what's right and absolutely will pay dividends for this country and for our future. I just want to thank you, and thank you for standing in the face of fierce opposition in this state. Your challenges have been greater than virtually any other state that I've seen. Yet you are here today and you believe that you can make a difference, and you need to make a difference. I will be here and I will help you replace your train wreck of a government.